Hey everyone, it's Lindsay here, and today I am going to share with you guys how to finish the Snowman 2024 cross stitch. And today we're going to focus on how to do a circular finish. So I'm going to teach you how to mount your cross stitch on a circle board and then add rickrack, and then we'll do the bow and put it all together. So we put together kits for the Snowman 2024, and in the kit you have, I'll just open it here. We included circle templates for you so they fit the board exactly, but you have your twine for the bow, you have your snowflake button, the rickrack, the ribbon for the bow, the fabric, and then there's two sheets here. You have your 6.5 inch circle and your 5.5 inch circle. I do want to mention there are circle plastic rulers from Creative Grids that we do have in the shop. You can purchase those, and they have a 6.5 and a 5.5. So these are actually really helpful if you do a lot of circle finishing. These are just great to have in your toolbox. So the first thing you're going to do is cut out your circles. So you have your template, and I have already done this. I've cut out both of my circles. I've traced them onto what's called, it's basically sticky board, and we have some of this in the shop, and I've already kind of worked ahead, but I've cut out both of my circles on one piece of sticky board. So the 6.5 inch circle is going to be your base circle with the fabric. I'm just going to show you the back. This is what it looks like. So when you are cutting out your circle, you're going to want to use really sharp scissors because you want a really clean edge. Once your circle is cut from the sticky board, I like to use, it's basically a nail file, and I will kind of file any kind of scraggly edges to make it nice and circular. And then this part is optional, but I kind of like how this has a little bit of, it's a little bit raised, and to get that effect, I've used a scrap piece of, let me grab it here, batting. So this is optional. I have found, I feel like it makes the cross stitch lay a little bit flatter. So I have a funny little scrap here. It's definitely scrap, and I have my circle, and the hardest part is remembering which side is sticky, and it just peels back, and I kind of got this started. But if you're having a hard time, what I have done is I just grab a sewing pin, and I will kind of use it to peel back the sticky part. And so I'm going to peel that back and then just lay it flat on here, stick it onto my batting, and then I'm going to cut around my template. And I'm showing you how to mount the cross stitch, but it's the same technique to doing a piece of just regular fabric. So I wanted to go ahead, and so this tutorial wasn't like an hour long. I've already done my fabric circle, and I wanted to show you guys how to mount the actual cross stitch, because I think that would be beneficial to show how to center and make sure everything looks good. So what I have here is my finished cross stitch. I have pressed it so it is nice and flat. So you want to make sure you have all your wrinkles out, because you want it to look nice and crisp for your finish. So I have my fabric, or my hard circle with my batting on the top, and we are going to place, this is where, if you do have the circle templates, it's nice because they're see-through and you can kind of see where you're at. But I also, if you don't, what I've done here is kind of eyeballing it, and then I kind of use my finger to crease and just kind of see where I am on the front. And it's definitely something that you will play with as you are mounting your piece. And I feel like I'm actually really happy with how that, I feel like I'm equal on all sides. I'm just gonna carefully, what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to just keep it in place, and then I'm going to use my fabric pen and just trace around here. And you can see from the back, you can see I'm actually really happy with my sides. It looks even on all my sides. It looks like I may have a little extra space on that side, but when we mount it, we can kind of move it a little bit. But this is a guideline, so we know where to do our running stitch, so we can gather our fabric to make it so it gathers together in the circle. So what I'm going to do is I have threaded a needle, and I have used, this is just regular Aurifil, what I use in my sewing machine thread. It's 100% cotton, and it's what I had on hand, so it seemed like the best option for me to use. And what we're going to do is, let me kind of, so these aren't in the way. We're going to use this as a guide, and if you wanted to get even a little bit more technical, it might be helpful, which I think I'm going to do, is use my one larger circle, and you can use your other cutout, and center that and do an outside circle. And I would say it's about 1/2 inch around. And I'm going to use that as a guide for where to run my stitches. You can eyeball this on the fabric piece. I eyeballed it because I didn't really have to find a center of the cross stitch. I was just using fabric, so I didn't have to be as precise. With this one, you have to be a little bit more careful because we want to keep our cross stitch as centered as possible and have it as... Okay, so I have a needle and thread here, and I it is quite long because I want, basically we're going to do a running, like a gathering stitch all the way around, and we need to make sure we have plenty of thread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and I'm using my outside guideline, and I'm going to go in and out and bring my thread all the way till I get my knot. And then what I'm going to do here is you're going to just follow that guideline and go in and out and pull through. Take your time because you don't want any knots or any, this is like a gathering stitch, and so you don't want any knots to come in, and you don't want your thread to break, otherwise it won't gather all the way at the end. So take your time, and I have done this a few times now, and I have noticed it looks neater and circles better if I do stitches that are not super long. I mean, I'm not doing tiny stitches, but I'm not going crazy either and doing like ½ an inch apart. I would say, I'm gonna put this up so you can see. So I'm just gonna follow my circle and basically go in and out, in and out. And if you have a really long needle, I know there's different needles that you can use and do like several stitches at it, like do so many at once. But I don't have one of those, and I might have just knotted. No, I didn't. Okay. So I'm going to just keep going around my circle, being careful I don't knot my thread. And I want to show you, like, if you can see, if I pull on this, it'll start gathering. So we know it's doing its job, this stitch. So I'm gonna continue to do this, and I will be back once I am at the end. I have my circle, and I have my, so you can see how much fabric I have there. I definitely need to trim more to make it a little less bulky. So I'm going to kind of undo that. I'm not gonna trim, don't accidentally trim your thread. That would be catastrophic. You would have to start over. So I'm gonna go in and carefully trim closer to where I am. So when I was doing the fabric, it's not as thick, so you don't have as much bulk, but with cross stitch fabric, you're gonna be dealing with a heavier weight of fabric. And so you want to reduce some of that bulk. And I'm being very careful with my rotary cutter so I don't cut myself. Okay, I think that's better. Okay, so now I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna pull. See how that kind of pulled way easier? I'm gonna look at my front. I'm gonna see about if I need to shift it one way or another. This is a good time to do that. So like, I felt like it needed to come over to the right a little bit. So I'm gonna pull that in, and I am really liking how that's looking. So when you're pulling, don't be being like the Hulk and pull so hard you break your thread, which I learned the hard way several times. So what I'm going to do is I've pulled it pretty tight. I still have quite a bit of thread here on my needle, which is good because now I'm going to start basically securing it and lacing it back and forth. So I'm going to pull tight, and then I'm going to use my finger here to kind of hold that, and I'm going to come over to this side directly across, and I'm going to do a stitch. And then I'm going to come back over here and do a stitch. And kind of being mindful, don't be like pulling so tight you break your thread. I did that several times when I was doing this for the first time. I was pulling it so tight that I broke my thread a few times, and then I had to start over. So if you're like, oh, I'm good, I don't want to lose like my gathering stitch, you could tie off now, which I think I'm going to come over here, do one more stitch. And if I was nervous about, you know, breaking my thread, I could tie off so I know that's secure, and then keep going. Because basically what we're going to do is what this looks like. Keep going back and forth around the entire circle to gather and just make it tighter all the way around. So now I'm feeling pretty good about where this is, and I still have plenty of thread. And I like to just go across as I do this until I've made it all the way around the circle. And you can like turn around and see, oh, I have a little like bumpy right there, so I need to make sure I pull that side nice and tight. But I'm going to tie off here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that tight. My thread has come out right here, and I'm just going to go close to where I was. Pull it tight. And then I'm going to go back in again. I don't know if this is like the professional way of doing this, but this is, oh, I don't know what just happened there. I went in a different spot, so hang on. So I don't know what happened. So I'm gonna go across to tie off really quick. I went in a weird spot. And I'm just gonna go through my loop and make a knot. And this is not very tight, but we'll get it tight with the next thread. I'm gonna do one more knot just to like, for peace of mind. So I go in, go through the loop again, and pull tight. So I have another needle and thread already ready to go. And I have a knot at the end because my thread is so long. Okay, so I'm gonna start over here, pull my thread through, and I'm just gonna keep working my way through back and forth until I feel like I've gotten all the way around the circle, and just going back and forth and back and forth. Okay, so I am done lacing. I'm going to just tie it off with a knot. I feel like I'm gonna do a couple. I feel like it's pretty, looks really good. So I'm happy with how it looks. I do know that some people will, instead of like lacing like this, they will use hot glue and glue underneath and pull it tight, which is totally a great option if that's what you want to do. So now you can see I have both my layers, and now we're going to add the rickrack to our cross stitch layer. So to do that, I have my rickrack here, and this is where I'm just gonna test my glue gun here. This needs to come off. There we go. Okay, so I have my glue gun. And you could probably use just like fabric glue, and it might take a while to like set and dry, and you won't burn your fingers. But I am going to use a hot glue gun. This is the one I'm using, and I'm going to just go very slow, and I like to kind of work like this. So I'm leaving a tail because I want to be able to have a really, I'm gonna hide my edge so that you shouldn't be able to see where I started and ended. So what I like to do is I add a tiny bit of hot glue, literally like an inch. I know it sounds like really tedious. And then I kind of just go like that. And I am being careful, and this hot, like, it's not burning me to death. So you're just gonna carefully add in. If you do more than like an inch or so at a time, it's gonna dry before you can get it to stick. So, and as you can see, like, I'm only showing my hills, and my valleys are like almost flush with the edge of my cross stitch. So I'm being very careful, and I'm not overdoing the hot glue because you don't want like to push down and have your hot glue come out the front. So very carefully, you don't want to go crazy. And if you're nervous, like, test it on some fabric that you like, maybe test the technique on something that you can like test before like going straight into a finished piece. And I like working from like this angle so I can see how much of my rickrack is showing. And just be careful that you don't burn yourself on your hot glue. Like, I'm sure there's a tool that you could use, but this is what works for me. And I feel like this hot glue gun doesn't get like, it's not super burning like fire. Okay, so I got lots of hot glue webbies happening. So I'm coming to where I need to meet up my ends. And what I want to do is kind of fold this one in and I'm going to glue it down. Okay. And then I'm going to put this one over the top. See how it's overlapped? Okay. And then I'm going to grab some really nice sharp scissors, and where I have overlapped, I'm going to trim, and then I'm going to glue that down my little tail. Okay. And there's our cute little bric-a-brac trim. So now we have all these webbies everywhere. I'm gonna move that. So you should have your bottom layer, your top layer, and now what I'm going to do is glue, use my hot glue gun, and I'm going to glue the layers together. And I'm not getting super close to the edge because I don't want glue coming out the sides and squishing out. I'm just kind of going for it, you guys. And I'm gonna be careful not to burn myself. That looks nice and centered, so I'm going to just apply pressure. Make sure your hands are clean as you're working with your cross stitch, especially if you have white. Oh my goodness, look how cute. I love it so much. Okay, so I have that all glued together. So now we're going to do the bows. So for that, you need some like floral wire and you need some wire cutters. We have a link to the wire cutters. We have a link to the hot glue gun, to these fun little things. I don't know what these files. So I'm gonna kind of clear my space off here. Okay guys, now we're gonna make the bow. And in your kit, you have one long piece of red ribbon. I have cut the base of the bow at 10 inches. And then I cut another piece at 14 inches. And I like the size of this bow. I feel like it's very balanced with the piece. If you want to go for a huge bow, you go for it. If you want to do the size that I'm doing, then you cut your pieces to the 10 and the 14. So what you're going to do is you're going to overlap the pieces together like this. Hang on. I want to make sure I don't know if there's a right or wrong side on this. I think there is. There is a right and wrong side, I feel like, on this ribbon. So I've overlapped, as you can see, my pieces. And I'm just going to bring this over to kind of check. I'm going to overlap it a little bit more. I'm going to sit it on the center of my base. And then you're going to get a piece of wire, like floral wire, and wire cutters. We have linked in the shop the wire cutters, the file for your board, a glue gun, all of those you can find in our Amazon store. And what I'm going to do is this can take some like practice. You're gonna gather your bow like this. And I'm going to take my wire, and I have a huge piece, which is okay. And I've gathered it to where I like it. And then I'm going to I need my needle nose pliers. If you have needle nose pliers, which I didn't bring, it works wonderful because you can really tighten, and I'm just going around and tightening this. And you can kind of see, like before you tighten too much, if you need to like adjust because one side looks a little off, like it has more on one side than the other, which I feel like it does on this side. So I'm going to kind of carefully pull so it's balanced. And then I'm going to just tighten that as much as I can. And if you have like needle nose pliers, you can like really get in there. And I am going to just do a few more twists, and then I'm going to cut my wire, maybe. Just like that. Push it down. Okay, so I have my wire cut, and now you want to kind of cut your tails so they're like, and to do that, so they have this cute little, I don't even know what you call that, but this thing. So what you're gonna do is what I prefer. I have to make sure I'm going in the right angle. Before you commit, just like, if I were to go this way, is that the right way? Hang on. I'm going to make sure I go the right way. Okay. So fold it in half, and that was the correct way. So test it. And I'm going to go from corner to corner, and I have way too much. I have way too much overage, but you can't put back, so it's easier to do a little bit at a time. So let me do this side. I do that. Okay. This side I don't have as much to work with, so I want to make sure I don't go crazy. Do it till you feel like it's balanced. And you can use like fray check to make it so your edges don't fray. I feel like that looks pretty darn good. Okay, so now we're going to do the twine bow, and for this is how I did it. So we want to have like a tail. So I have like maybe 3 or 4 inches here, and then I have all 4 of my fingers, and I'm wrapping around, and you can see I'm not going super tight, and I have it, so I've wrapped, let me count this. So wrap once, twice, 3, 4. I did 5, but you could do less than that. Grab it, put your pieces together, kind of like center it like that. Like grab the center, and then grab your, grab another piece of wire, and you could use like, you could wrap the twine around itself, but when I tried to do that, it got pretty tricky. You need almost one more person to help you do that. If you have your needle nose pliers, this would come in handy. But I'm just kind of making it nice and tight. And I've made this fun little bow. And I'm going to just take my wire, wrap it. Okay, so now I'm going to trim my excess wire off. And this is all going to be hidden under the snowflake. Okay, so now you can see I have both layers, and you have these little tails, and you can trim them all the way off. On the model, I just left a fun little tail like that. And then you can get one more piece of wire, or you can just hot glue these together. I think I'm going to opt for the wire because I think it will stay better. And I'm going to wire these two bows together. Just like that. Okay, twist it, cut it. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I have my cute bow, and now I'm going to hot glue my button, or you could use like E6000 glue, whatever you prefer. I'm just gonna do a daub, don't go crazy. I'm just gonna push it down. It's nice and flat. I'm gonna kind of floof my bow a little bit. And I'm going to make those so they are in a good position. Okay, so now I have all of my elements. I have my board, I have my main piece, and I have my bow. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use my hot glue. You could use like the magnet and washer method where you glue magnets. I don't plan on putting anything else on this. I just plan on keeping it the same. It's not like interchanging it with another piece. So I've hot glued it nice. And I think that looks good. I'm gonna put pressure. I think that looks great. The bow might stay better with some like E6000 if you're worried about that not staying. But I'm going to just glue my bow on, apply pressure. And I think it needs a little bit more. And there it is. All done. You can find the cross stitch chart. We carry floss packs for the actual cross stitch, and be sure to check out our other videos, like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.